Hello, welcome everyone. Happy Black History Month and thanks for joining us. My team and I are thrilled to have you as we explore the Obama portraits in the metaverse with the one and only Amy Sherald. My name is Kai and I am the founder and CEO of KaiXR, where we create safe pathways to the metaverse for students. If this is your first time rocking out with KaiXR, let me take 60 seconds to tell you more about what we do. KaiXR is created by educators. We use metaverse technologies to expose students to global educational opportunities so they can be better prepared for a highly technical future. We do that by empowering our educators. We create the tools they need to provide hands-on learning opportunities that develop 21st century skills in students. Those tools include things like kid-friendly content with our 100 plus virtual field trips, lesson plans and curriculums, metaverse classrooms, professional development, and more. We help teachers prepare students for tomorrow today. Our goal is to give 1 million kids access to metaverse technologies by 2030. When we hit this goal, we know we're on track to creating the metaverse we all deserve, filled with diverse stories, accessible resources, increased connectivity, and culturally relevant content. And we are confident that our students will lead the way. So to all of our customers, old and new, we are so thankful for you. Thanks for continuing to support Black business. We have an amazing program for you this evening. So don't forget to grab your notebook so you can write down all the cool things you're going to learn. I never assume anybody knows what I'm talking about when I say things like VR and the metaverse. So to get things started, let's kick off with a warm-up. Coming to the stage is KaiXR's warm-up extraordinaire and my first-year mentor teacher, Miss Yolanda Farmer.
Hey dreamers, hey, welcome, 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 and happy Black History Month. We are so happy that you're here with us today. So let's get the party started. To get the party started, I want to know, what is virtual reality? And I also want to know, have you ever used VR before? Please talk to me, put your answers down in the chat. Have you ever tried a cool VR game? If so, tell us about it. We want to know. Maybe you haven't used VR before, but you want to. If that's the case, tell us. Put it in the chat. Talk to us. I'm so curious to hear your responses. Oh, I see. Oh, some of you played VR and AR games. That is excellent. Oh, you have cardboard headsets. That is excellent. You've not used the VR game before. Well, you know, every day is a great day to get started with it. It's so great. Oh, nice. So you've done some hubs. Excellent. That's pretty sweet. I'm loving that. Oh my gosh, I'm loving the answers that are just flowing and flying through the chat. Oh my gosh, so awesome. Streamers, you are like rocking it. AR and VR games. My goodness, way to go. So, hey, dreamers, we really appreciate your responses, and we're really hoping you're going to love this program. We're pretty sure you will. So, without further ado, Kai, I'm going to send it back over to you so we can learn some more about VR.
Thank you so much, Ms. Farmer. Wow, you all had some great answers. So let's jump right into it. What is VR? Simply put, VR is when you use a device, such as a VR headset, to become fully immersed in a virtual environment. At KaiXR, we specialize in VR. As soon as that headset goes on, you are transported to new worlds. You might experience new careers, new cultures, and locations, and most times it feels like you're really in that new world, even if you may just be sitting on your couch. Our Obama Portraits virtual field trip is the topic of today's program as we talk to Amy Sherald, the artist behind iconic portraits, including the portrait of First Lady Michelle Obama, which you can view up close and personal during our KaiXR field trip. Towards the end of the program, we'll give you more details on how you can check it out. Before we welcome Amy, we're going to start with a short clip to set the scene.
During the process of painting the portrait, I received a lot of letters from junior high school students that had never had an interest in art before. And I think that's because they don't see art that represents them. And I think for me, the kind of portraiture that I wanted to make and the kind of paintings that I wanted to make, I wanted them to be images of Black people without contention, that were extricated from a dominant historical narrative. I think it's underrated how affected children are by not seeing representations of themselves.
Okay, so we are ready to get started and bring out our guests of honor. So coming to the stage, we are welcoming the one and only Amy Sherald.
Hello.
Hello, Amy. Thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. For our students that are watching, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Amy Sherald. I'm a painter, and I painted the First Lady Michelle Obama.
Awesome, awesome. So, Amy, we're going to go back to the very beginning. Can you tell us when you developed an interest in creating art, and how did you decide that this is something you wanted to do?
Well, if you see that picture right there, I was about that age when I decided I wanted to be an artist. So I was around in the second grade.
Awesome. And how did you decide that? How did you learn the skill?
I drew all the time. So I would copy pictures out of magazines. And then eventually my mother put me in art classes. And the more you draw, the better you become.
Okay, we always teach our kids that those constant iterations are really what improves your skills. So
yes,
my next question is going to be that there are endless pathways in the world of art. How did your life experiences influence your artistic journey to go into the world of portraits?
Well, I traveled a lot. I had the opportunity to travel a lot in college, and all of those experiences, especially being born in Georgia, which is a very southern state, and growing up in an environment that was, I say, post the civil rights movement. So right after the civil rights movement, I was born in 1973, which feels like a very long time ago, but there was still a lot of residual racism in my city. And a lot of these portraits are almost a diary of my experiences from the time I was in elementary school to the time I was in high school before I left to go to college.
Awesome. So we're going to go a little bit deeper into your experience. So we like to prepare our students that sometimes pursuing your dreams gets challenging and it can be downright scary. Can you walk us through some of the challenges you endured over your career and how you overcame them?
Yes, I had many challenges because being an artist isn't easy. And it's something that you can work very hard at, but maybe you'll never become known. But the kind of challenges I had were needing to paint all the time, but then you have to have a job. So then you have to figure out how you're going to eat, how you're going to pay your rent. Those are things that I was really constantly worried about. But I also had a lot of support from my parents and from friends that got me through those difficult times.
Yeah, that makes sense. When I started the company for Kayaks R, I always tell people like I had to liquidate all my assets. I had to sell my house, my car, everything I owned just to start. And getting money every single day was a struggle. So we try to remind students that sometimes it's not about what you have, but what are you willing to sacrifice for those dreams? So
right.
Thank you.
It's high risk. I say some careers are high risk and you have to be comfortable with risk and you have to be comfortable with failure.
Oh my goodness. So I was just telling somebody this morning, this world is not for the faint of heart. And failure is one of those hard things for students. So I would say, how did you increase your appetite for failure?
When you are in love with something and it's the only thing that you can see yourself doing, then nothing will stop you.
That's great. And I also, when we talk to kids, we tell them that sometimes finding that community of people who are doing it with you, it kind of encourages you when times get hard, that you have those people to go to and really get some motivation and things like that. So no, thank you, Amy. That's really great advice for our students. So through it all, you got the call that would change your life, the opportunity to paint First Lady Michelle Obama. I'm going to pause and share this short clip to give some more context.
Okay.
I stand here today with all of you and look at this amazing portrait that will hang among so many iconic figures, I am a little overwhelmed, to say the least. I'm also thinking about all of the young people, particularly girls and girls of color, who in years ahead will come to this place and they will look up and they will see an image of someone who looks like them hanging on the wall of this great American institution.
Okay, that is all of our favorite soundbite from that presentation. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into it. So let me get my screen working. Okay, so we asked students a lot of, we asked them what their questions were, and a lot of them wanted to know, first off, how was it like working with First Lady Michelle Obama?
It was really fun. You would think that you would be very intimidated, but she's just a girl from the South Side. So it was really fun. We had music on during the photo shoot. And I think the first time I was talking to her assistant, China, when I was getting ready, and she was like, she likes to have rap music on when she's like doing these photo shoots. I'm like, really? So we were dancing around and having a good time. It was really great to work with her. She gave me complete and total creative freedom. And so her having that level of confidence in me and what I do was really important for me, and just gave me the energy that I needed to move forward with the project and make a successful portrait.
That's beautiful. So the second part of that question is, when the selection came for you and Kehinde Wiley, how did it feel to be selected as the first African Americans to paint a presidential portrait?
You know, when you think about your life and you think about a legacy, and legacy is something that's really important, to have it all said and done in that one moment, because I'm like, I could quit my life now and I still have this no matter what I do. It was special, and it was something that I don't know that I quite have words for, but I am very grateful to be a part of her legacy, and also the legacy of this art historical narrative that they have decided to change by choosing us contemporary artists to do their portrait, and for these portraits to sit among all these traditional portraits that we've seen over decades, and that they are different from those portraits that you see at the National Portrait Gallery. And they're different for a reason, because this was a very important moment. And when people go to the museum and they're looking around, they need to understand that time stopped for a moment, and we had our first Black president and our first Black first lady. And if you just happen to miss that 8 years of your life and you walk to the National Portrait Gallery, you're going to notice that there's something that you don't know, and it's going to make you curious, and you're going to want to know why these portraits are so different from the other portraits that you see.
Wow, I didn't even think about it like that. When we were filming the VR experience for it, I remember walking through the gallery, and it was just, like it was a portrait of a white man, another president, and just it's kind of like, sedated colors and things like that. And then we walk into your work and Kehinde Wiley's work, and it just makes you stop exactly where you were, and you have to pay attention and learn more about it. So yeah, in the history books, that will be a big part of their legacy and your legacy as well. So yeah. I'm gonna kind of go deeper into it. So can you take us through the process of creating the portrait?
Yeah, so when I first got that phone call, I was very excited. And the first thing that I did was go online. I went on the internet and I went to look at all the different photos that had been taken of her for those past 8 years, because I wanted to get a visual on how she had been represented to the public. And then that informed my decision as a painter to the energy that I wanted this painting to have. And it was something that was quiet and intimate, and something that was private and not public. And when I say that, for her to be able to completely be herself in this moment, because we're all our authentic selves, but if you're on a stage, then it's, there's a part of you that is performative, because that's what you do when you're in public. But this moment was an authentic moment where she was just able to relax and be herself. And not have to worry about what other people were going to think about what she was doing. We went through a series of different poses and different places in this green area that you see. We were in the backyard of a home in Washington, D.C. And I usually photograph my models for about an hour because it takes about that long for the model to forget that they're actually being photographed. She was actually really good at that, obviously, because she's photographed all the time. So we were just talking and messing around, and I had moved her from one place to another, and I had spread her dress out here. And we were just talking, and while we were talking, she just kind of moved into this pose, and I was like, I think that's it, you know? So I kind of curated her fingers a little bit and, like, you know, moved the dress around, and then went back and got the shot that I wanted.
Wow. So from beginning to end, how long did this take?
Let's see, I found out in September. I went to the White House to be interviewed. I found out in September, and I think we had 2 opportunities to photograph. So let's say I had to keep it a secret for a whole year and a half. Nobody could know. So almost 2.5 years.
Wow, I did not know it was that long. You are a professional secret keeper.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well,
it's hard to keep good news. You know, it's hard to really, when there's good news, you just like want to tell everybody, but
I don't know how he did that, but we're so happy that we have your work to share with the world now. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that last clip that we just heard. So in that last clip, First Lady Michelle Obama reflected on your work, where she spoke to the impact your portrait continues to have on girls, especially girls of color, and that they can now see someone that looks like them hanging on the walls of the National Portrait Gallery. After the portraits were revealed in 2018, I reached out to you about wanting to create a VR experience so students could view the portraits from any location and yet still feel like they were viewing them from inside the museum. We filmed the production using 360 cameras, which you'll see in this image right here. And that's what allows you to feel immersed like you're in that gallery. So now, because of that filming, anywhere you are, students can go ahead and view the portraits like they're standing right in front of them. And you can view it on smartphones to VR headsets. I like to, when I tell people about this filming, I sometimes talk about the importance of like shooting your shot. I was elated that you, as you obliged us. And I remember I kept trying to get the museum to, help us put this on. And then I was like, what are the odds if I just DM Amy Sherald, if she would like respond back to me. And I'm like, there's no way this is gonna work. And literally it worked. And that's how we were able to put this together. And I'm still thankful. And people don't believe me when I tell them that. And this was, just a really big deal to us. And we've been able to do much with this and give it to so many kids, and their faces just light up every time they see it. So we're just really thankful for that. So I'm gonna do one last question before we take a small break, which is, why was it important to you? Like, why did you say yes to us? Why was it important to you to make these portraits accessible to students using metaverse technologies such as VR?
Yeah, well, I have to say what you're doing and what you're giving young students is so important. And it's something that I couldn't pass up on. And, not everybody could get to DC and go to the National Portrait Gallery to see this portrait. And I know that, like I said, I received letters from students who were really excited to have the opportunity to see the work, but possibly couldn't afford to get to DC from California or from Georgia or wherever they were. And so this was something that brought them into the space. And, this is why we do what we do as artists, I made this painting for all of these young girls and all of these young boys to be able to see themselves reflected in this museum and understand that their history is just as important, if not more, than all these people that are in the museum.
Yeah, we're so thankful for agreeing to work with us on this. You said yes when the company was just in ideation mode. I think I had the company for like 4 months at that point. And since you said yes, we've been able to share this experience over 5,000 times with kids since 2018, including we made a special trip to Baltimore to make sure we gave headsets to kids in the area and they could view it as well. So we're so thankful for that opportunity. So for everybody watching at home, as the world becomes more and more virtual, make sure you keep an eye out for other examples of VR in your world. And if you're not sure where to start, we got you covered. So you can always send us an email to explore@kixr.com if you have any questions about VR. Amy and I are going to take a really quick break, and I'm going to pass it back over to Ms. Farmer for our next warm-up. And remember, at the end of the program, we'll give you details about how to explore the Obama portraits as a virtual field trip. And last thing I just want to say before we take our break is, if you have any questions for Amy, you can submit them using the Q&A button, and we will select a couple at the very end to answer. So I see we have about 3 right now. Please add some more, and we will add them, we will answer them at the very end. So without further ado, Ms. Farmer, we are going to bring you back. So welcome back to the Zoominar stage, Ms. Farmer, with our last warm-up.
All right, dreamers, how you feeling? I don't know about you, but my heart and my spirit is really full right now. I'm giving all hearts over here. I hope that you have learned a lot during our last segment about virtual reality. So let's get on to our next subject. I want to know, what do you know about the metaverse? Have you ever heard that phrase before? If you have, what are some characteristics of the metaverse? Remember, you can put your answers in the chat for us so we can know what you're thinking, know what you know, show off a little bit if you don't mind. Have you heard about it and you want to learn more? Let us know in the chat. Is the metaverse virtual? Is it like a universe? Flex what you know, show off. There's no shame in showing off what you know. Let us know some of the characteristics about the metaverse in the chat. Oh, so your first experience was on Facebook? Okay, that's cool. And look, I'm still learning too. It's such a cool experience. It's such an amazing concept. Talk to me, show it off, y'all. Tell me what you know. Maybe you have questions and things that you'd want to learn about it. I see somebody had mentioned, oh yeah, it's spatial. Absolutely. Okay, so it's a build out of your environment that you create. I know, learning more about it is really cool. It's so great when you learn something new. All the lights go on and everything flickers and pops, and it's just amazing. So it's the metaverse is a VR, AR digital world. Okay, I like that. Oh my goodness. Dreamers, y'all are the bomb.com. Yes, you are. I'm just saying, thank you for sharing, flexing what you know, and showing off your knowledge. So let's get back to it, dreamers. You've done a fantastic job. And I'm going to send it right back over to you, Kai, so we can learn more about creating in the metaverse.
Thank you so much, Ms. Farmer. We really do appreciate it. So, okay, now we've made it to the hot topic in the streets right now, the metaverse. So here's the thing. There's no universally accepted definition of the metaverse, except for maybe it's a fancier successor to the internet. And to be honest, the metaverse is an idea that doesn't fully exist yet. It's still being created by all of us. But if I had to try to define it, I would maybe say it's a virtual space that combines multiple elements of technology, including VR. In the metaverse, you can explore, dream, and create with others that aren't in the same physical space with you. But what do I mean when I say it's an idea that hasn't been fully created yet? Consider the following. In the early days of TV, did you know that TV went off air at the end of the night? Around midnight, the channel you were watching would play the national anthem, and then the TV would go into static until the next morning. Let me know in the chat if you remember that, because I remember that. I may be aging myself. Compared to today, TV had very few programs and channels. It wasn't until CNN debuted in 1980 that we had the first 24-hour cable TV channel, and more channels came to follow, such as BET and even MTV in 1981. We got more channels because we kept creating more content. What about the internet? The dot-com boom happened in the mid-1990s as the internet went from having very few websites to boom, lots of websites. Fast forward today, and there's a website for almost anything. You can literally go to WordPress right now and create a website. So what about the metaverse? Just like TV channels and the internet, it will be all of us that are going to create within this new space. But when a student asks me, what can they create in the metaverse? I always respond with one answer. You can create anything you can imagine. I quickly found out that teaching kids to dream big and use their imagination is easier said than done. So to close out this program, we're going to dive into the importance of using your imagination to create. Before we bring Amy back out to the virtual stage, I'm going to play a short clip highlighting Amy's creative process and how she uses her imagination.
Public Blackness has been culturally codified as something that's always attached to resistance, which essentially to me limits our humanity and the ways in which that we can imagine ourselves existing. I oftentimes say that the paintings are a resting place for people to see a reflection of themselves that is not in resistance or contention. It's just a Black person just being a person. A big part of her practice is that she'll pick people off the street, mainly in Baltimore, and she'll take photos of them, or she'll invite them back to her studio and take photos of them. And so they literally are everyday people sort of doing everyday things. And I think that's felt through the work. It's very intuitive, and I can be driving down the street and I can see someone within an instant, I know, and try to connect with this person to let me use their image.
It's almost like she's scouting the perfect subject. She's looking for something that connects to her almost on a spiritual level. It's not necessarily about any one physical quality.
Once I start the painting, it really becomes less about them and more about my work and what I see and what's happening in my imagination and the archetype that I'm trying to create. These people.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and transition to our next portion and welcome back Amy to our virtual stage as we go deeper into using your imagination. So welcome back, Amy. We missed you. So we're going to go ahead and dive right back in. So Amy, your work is rooted in your imagination. Can you tell us more about the process of tapping into your imagination to create, and how did you come up with some of these concepts?
You know, I oftentimes when I am speaking to young art students and they say they have creative block, I say there's no such thing as creative block. You just haven't lived enough life to have enough things to paint about, to think about, you know. So I spent almost a year going to my studio and wanting to make work, but the ideas just weren't there. So I spent the year just living, like taking a bus, going up to New York, going to museums, looking at other artists' work. I watched a lot of movies. I sat on a lot of park benches. I read a lot of books, and all of these things fed my imagination. And sooner or later, you know, these ideas will start to come together in your mind, and then you have a wealth of knowledge to pull from because you've exposed yourself to so much through reading and experiencing life, and it all just comes together.
Yeah, Amy, one of the things that I always like and mesmerize about your portraits is what you name them. I always feel like I can get lost in just the title by themselves. Can you give us some examples of the titles of your work and maybe how you even came to that?
Let's see. One is, well, let's see, the unicorn right here. That one is called It Made Sense Mostly in Her Mind. And when I was a teenager, my mom sent me off to summer camp, and it was an equestrian camp. So I was learning a technique of riding called jump hunt or something like that. I can't remember anymore because it's been a long time, but I was jumping over the long white logs that you see sometimes on television. And I was the only young Black girl in all of the camp. And I was there with my best friend, Courtney Jensen, who was white. And there was a young girl that was staying in our room. We all had tree houses with 3 beds. And for some reason, she didn't know I was Black. And so she was talking about, she was saying all the inappropriate things that you shouldn't say. And, it's just one of those experiences that you carry with you, because it wasn't anything that I could leave, and especially because it was horseback riding, that I could leave and then talk to my friends about, because my parents put me in these kinds of experiences because they wanted to give me a better life than what they had, and they wanted to expose me to all these things that they were never exposed to. And riding the horses became something that I was really passionate about. And I guess, there's a part of it that I'm representing with this unicorn, because a part of it felt like a fairy tale. A part of it felt like I was living in somebody else's world. And so that's where that title came from. Like, she's holding a broomstick that has a unicorn head on it, but it makes sense mostly in her mind that she's there.
Thank you for that. That's what I feel like, that one maybe in the National Museum of Women in the Arts. I remember just standing in front of that one and being like, oh, that's how my mind works. It makes sense to nobody. I'm like, in my mind, it makes absolutely perfect sense. So I really always love that one. So one of another popular question we get from our students is, why are the people in your portraits gray?
Well, in the beginning, I realized that I did not want the conversation around the work to only be about race and identity, because I wanted to create images of us that were, as mentioned previously, that were just about us being us. And so for me, taking color away from the skin isn't taking race away from the skin, because we still look at each other and we look at each other and we see our phenotype, and our phenotype is what? It's like how our noses are shaped, how our lips are shaped. So you could look at somebody in a black and white photograph and you can know that they're European, you can know that they're Black, you can know that they're Chinese or Asian based on their phenotype and what their eyes are shaped like, their nose is shaped like, et cetera. So for me, it was to create a possibility of a viewer to have this encounter, and the first thing that comes into their mind is not skin color, but just a person's humanity.
Thank you for that, Amy. Really appreciate it. Going into the work that you do right now with students, one of the main questions we get from teachers is, how can they empower students to help them discover that their voices, their perspectives, and their ideas are important when creating?
I guess the same way that my art teacher, Jerry Davis, did. She encouraged me to make images of people that looks like me and explore my own story and my own history, and to make work about those things that were my own ideals and not someone else's ideals.
Wow, I'm going to be thinking about that way past this conversation, but thank you for that. So using your imagination and putting your ideas into the world can often make one feel a little bit vulnerable. What advice do you have for kids when people don't understand their ideas, or maybe even say negative things about their work?
You just look at them and you say, you don't understand my genius. Because you're not a genius. It takes a genius to understand a genius. No, I mean, there's a billion people in this world, and we're all very different, and we all come to things in a very different way. And you cannot care what other people think all the time. Like, there's opinions that you should take into, that you should take in and listen to and let them form you. And there's some that will come, and you just have to know what to accept and what to push back based on how it makes you feel. And you're not always going to do things that people like. There were people out there that didn't like the Michelle Obama portrait, right? So what can I do about it? Like, I just make what I make, you know what I mean? So if you want a different portrait, then go paint it yourself, Um, but I mean, you have to be strong, and you have to keep your wits about yourself and ground yourself and know who you are and know that you're important and nobody else can make you feel unimportant but you. If you listen, and then the feelings that you have, the negative feelings that you have are not that person, but they're your own feelings, and you have to push that away.
I'm going to also be thinking about that answer for a long time too. So thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to transition a little bit. So we're going to now go into the makerspace. When we work with students, we use a Metaverse makerspace where students can take their favorite content, or they can even create their own assets and make a new virtual world. After watching the Obama Portraits virtual field trip, a lot of the kids have taken interest into making Metaverse art galleries. And some of the students wanted to make a space to honor your work, to share their friends and their family. So my team and I created one of our student spaces so you can see what it looks like here when they were so inspired by your work. So what does it feel like to know that students are celebrating Black stories in the Metaverse, including your stories and your work? And what does this mean for the future?
You know, for me, what it means for the future, well, one is it's excellent. It's wonderful because technology is the future. And my dream would be that, you know, we're able to bring the world to people where they are, and allow everyone to have, you know, similar experiences without having to travel abroad, for example, especially now. Let's say, for example, during COVID, we were stuck in our homes, but with technology like this, we could be on a beach in another country, we could be walking through a museum space. And I think it's just really important to see yourself out of context, if that makes sense, because that's when you really get to understand who you are, when you're not in the place where you've always been. So I always say, when I travel outside of the United States, I really get to know who I am, because there's nothing around me that's familiar. And then who I am becomes very obvious to me. You get to have different conversation with yourself about yourself in these different contexts and countries. And experiences. And so I think, you know, that's what's really great about this and what you're doing and what you're offering for students.
Thank you so much, Amy. So, all right, to everyone that's tuning in, don't forget, we need your creations in the Metaverse. Our students will be the next generation of innovators, and we can't wait to see what stories, worlds, and ideas you all bring to the table. But remember, you got to dream really big to do so. So we have now made it to the Q&A portion of our program. Big thank you to everyone that submitted questions from the audience. So I got a couple questions in front of me that thank you also to my team who are going through and picking out questions for us. So I'm going to go to the first one, which I have from Sierra. Sierra says that I read that Amy was pre-med at Clark Atlanta University before courageously pursuing art instead. What would your advice be to young people struggling to follow their dreams?
Yeah, that was a tough decision because my father was a dentist, and I had to change my major without telling my parents. I'm not recommending that, but that's what I had to do. Advice I would give is just stay true to who you are. I think that's the most important thing. And you just have to understand that everybody is not going to see the vision that you have for yourself. And I always say my mother was the perfect mother for me. She never encouraged me to do this. She did not want me to do this. She was asking me until I was 39, 40 years old, like if I wanted to have another career, because she didn't see it as something that was viable. But she wanted something safe. And, you know, I think my mom was born in 1935. And so for me to say that I wanted to be an artist, there was like nothing out there that she could look at and say, okay, you can do this and be successful. So try to find somebody that's doing what you want to do. Find a mentor and people that can guide you through those rough times because they've been through those rough times. And just stay really focused. I didn't get caught up in a lot of like stuff. You know, I lived at a very basic and minimal level. I wasn't buying big TVs or a car. I was walking because all my money and all of my energy was going into becoming who I wanted to be. And I didn't want any of those distractions, because where you put your energy is what will flourish, whether it be positive or whether it be negative. You have to always be aware of what you're putting your energy towards. And I stayed very focused in what I was doing. And I think that was part of my success. It's like seeing myself here, visualizing where I wanted to be in the world, and just walking straight towards that every day.
Ooh, you were just dropping bars, Amy. I always tell people for this company, like, how are you doing this? I'm like, I see the end point. I can clearly see the end point. And as long as I can see the end point, I know where I'm going. But if anything else gets crazy and I can't see the end point, that's when the company dies. So I'm like, my goal every day is to just, vision is crazy when you think about it. And really, what do I do to exercise that vision and things like that? And it's scary because it makes sense mostly in my mind. And I have to now communicate that. So I really appreciate that answer. We got another question here that's saying, what is on your bucket list that you have not accomplished yet?
Ooh, let's see. I want to go to Italy. I have not been to Italy to look at, you know, these paintings that are hundreds of years old. That's something that I've always wanted to do and have not had the time to make that opportunity. But I'm living my bucket list. A lot of people don't know, but I'm a heart transplant recipient. And so I've had that moment in my life where I was like, this could be the end. How do I feel about how I live my life? And I was like really proud that I stuck to my path. And even though I hadn't reached that high level of success, I felt successful because I had not given up on my dream. So I'm on bonus year number 10. And this is my bucket list, like having a magnificent studio. I have a show in London in October. My life is my art, and that's all I really think about outside of shoes that I want to buy, and after I work really hard, and just having fun and going to the beach and doing things.
Okay, so I'm going to transition that into another question that we have that is asking, what do you have coming up next? Anything that the audience would love to know about?
Yeah, I have a show in London in October that I'm getting ready for. They're going to be 8 paintings in the show. It's with my gallery, Hauser and Wirth. It's the same week as Frieze London, which is a big art fair that happens in October there. And that's it right now. I mean, that's like a year and a half of getting ready. So it takes a long time to make the paintings, and I have to find the models, and I photograph the models, and all that stuff is a part of the process that takes a long time. So I'm moving towards that goal right now.
Sounds good. Okay, so I'm going to transition to a Metaverse AR VR question, and I'm going to flip it on the audience. So one of the questions that I have here is, what are some career options in the VR AR Metaverse space? Because I can see the people in the chat, there are a lot of people in the chat right now that have careers in the AR VR Metaverse space. Y'all flex. What are your jobs? Tell the groups who are people who are in the chat right now, what are your jobs? I can tell you that I see some people who are developers. I even see some AR VR journalists. I see people that are building worlds. What are some other things that are careers that maybe AR VR consultant in higher education? I have a program manager, so working with assets, content developer, all these different jobs. So for people who are wondering about some more AR VR jobs, software engineer, thanks Josh. I would love for you just to keep dropping on jobs that you have or careers that you have that may be in a space. The thing that we also stress to our students is that the job that you have or the job that you want, it may not exist yet, and you have to make it. I tell people when they ask me how I got to this, I tell them that, like, I was a history major. I wanted to start looking into VR. There was no job for people who were like history and VR, and this ended up being my job, if you will. So, wow, the robots instructor in the metaverse, cool. Charles out there making theme parks. So yeah, some cool things that people do right now in the metaverse. So, and And then people are dropping their names next to them as well. So for some careers that you're interested in, I encourage you, please go to the chat because we have some superstar Metaverse folks already in the chat. So I'm going to try to pick one last question on the list. Let me see. My team is trying to give me some questions, but I just saw one. Okay, got it. So the last question that I have here, Amy, it's for you. I'm coming back. It says that from Elena, Amy, do you have a vision for your own corner of the metaverse that would be dedicated to you and your art and maybe the stories that you tell? So if you could imagine what that space would look like, if you could take out a corner, what would that look like for you?
I think it would be, something really simple, and that's just, being able to share what I do with people, like maybe on a larger scale, taking them with me on, exhibition tours and things like that. But I don't really know because I'm like everyone else and I'm just learning about this too, in a bigger way, and committed to buying a monocle so that I can kind of experience what it's really like when you put those glasses on, and then figure out and use my imagination to figure out how I could also, use this tool to make people's lives better and maybe make my life better too.
Well, Amy, we got your coverage. You got a headset coming, so we'll make sure we take care of that. So I'm gonna do one last question. I have a question here that says, basically, when everything is all said and done, what do you want your legacy to be, and how do you want to be remembered?
Well, most importantly, I want to be remembered as a great daughter, a great sister, a great auntie, and dog owner to my babies. But I think this is it. Like, what I do is my legacy. Making this work is very important to me, that I'm leaving behind something that other people can carry with them, that can sustain them and become a greater part of art history. A lot of people don't know this, but African Americans weren't given exhibitions in museums or anywhere else until the 1940s. So if you think about art history starting back with cavemen and women, that's thousands of years where there was no representation of people that looked like us until the 1940s. Okay, that means my mom was 5 years old. So there's a lot of history there that I feel like I'm making up for, and time that I'm reclaiming. And I think that's what's most important to me now. Is this is my mission, is to, put out as many images as I can in the world so that they end up in museums, and so that when children walk into museums, they're able to see someone that looks like them, and they have a feeling of ownership as well within these institutions, because museums are these buildings, these institutions that tell us and inform us about what's important and what's valuable. So to see a reflection of yourself in a space like that, I think it's very important, and it will embolden you to move forward in your life in a way that is powerful and fruitful.
Thank you, Amy. We will take that as our final thought. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a dream come true. So I'm so excited about that. Before we let you go, how can students learn more about your work?
Well, Googleable. There'll also be, I believe there's a catalog coming out next year sometime, and there is one on Amazon right now. It's a small catalog from a show I did in St. Louis. And that's it. There's a lot of articles online and things like that they could read and print out.
That sounds good to me. So Amy said, make sure you Google her. So we'll go ahead and take that as our closing. So Amy, thank you so much. We will talk again very soon. And then for everybody else in the line, we're just going to tell you how to see some more of Amy's work. So thank you so much, Amy. Really
thank you. Virtual hug.
Yes. Thank you, Amy. Thank you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We know that you could have been anywhere this evening, and we're just so thankful that you chose to rock out with KXR for our Black History Month program. We hope you enjoyed it, and you are as excited as we are about the metaverse. KaiXR has grown thanks to community support, which is why we need your help to reach our goal. Feel free to screenshot this slide. If you know of any schools, STEM centers, libraries, media centers, summer camps, even after school programs, please send them our way so we can reach our goal of giving 1 million kids access to metaverse technologies by 2030. And directly following this program, we're going to send you an email on instructions on how to get started with our virtual field trips at kaixr.com, including our Obama Portraits virtual field trip. If you're new to virtual field trips, we recommend that you start off by using your laptop. However, KaiXR works on all devices, including smartphones, tablets, and even VR headsets. Don't forget that our VR experiences are filmed in 360 degrees, so that means you can move and drag the screen around like this GIF is doing, so you can see the full 360 degrees of action. So from the bottom of my heart,